When I opened my eyes, the world was gone. Not destroyed, not burning, just gone. Silence. Everywhere. The interior of my cryochamber was still frosted. My vitals were stable. The mission log showed we had arrived safely in Earth orbit after the Genesis 9 launch, but when I looked around, I was the only one awake. 12 other cryopods. All dark. No power. No heartbeat signals. Just frozen corpses floating inside like glass coffins. Something went wrong during the transition. Power. Outage, malfunction. I checked comms, no response, not from Houston. Not from ground stations, not from anyone. Every channel was dead. The entire planet was silent. I thought maybe I had the wrong frequency. Maybe my equipment was damaged. Maybe they were just late. Maybe someone would ping back. But minutes became hours. Hours became days. And the more I searched, the more I realized something terrifying. Earth was still functioning. I could see it below. The cities lit up, streets glowing, satellites orbiting, everything running. But no one was there. No traffic, no radio, no heat signatures. It was like the entire population had been erased in an instant, and the infrastructure never noticed. No war, no collapse, no fire, just nothing. And I was floating 400 kilometers above it, alone, the last human, until day 48. That's when the message came, not from a person, not from a device, but from the planet itself. A transmission that shouldn't have existed, encrypted in a format that predated all Earth communication protocols. My ship's AI decrypted only one sentence: "We are alive. Return to the core." The E. Message didn't come from a satellite. It didn't bounce from a relay or pass through a server. It came directly from Earth, from below the crust. From somewhere near the planet's core. That should have been impossible. No communication system could function from that depth, certainly not in a format that bypassed every known protocol and still managed to reach my orbital vessel without a single electromagnetic ripple. But it did. Just one line: "We are alive, return to the core." Not come home, not help us, just return. Return to what? I tried sending a response, broadcasting in every known frequency, encrypting my voice into code, into light pulses, anything. But Earth didn't reply. Instead, it moved. The orbital satellites began to shift, all of them, at once, dead systems. Ancient husks that hadn't responded to commands in decades, suddenly realigning, rotating in perfect mathematical formation. Not random, coordinated. They formed a pattern, not a shape, a map. Coordinates, trajectory vectors, all pointing downward into the Pacific Ocean off the coast of what used to be Indonesia, a place where the Earth's crust was thinner, where magma veins were closest to the surface, where something waited. My ship, the Hermes III, adjusted course on its own. I didn't touch the controls. The AI systems were completely offline, yet thrusters fired with precision. I should have been terrified, but I wasn't. There was a feeling creeping inside me, subtle at first, but growing stronger by the minute. Familiarity, like coming home after a long time away, like I'd always known this moment was coming. And then, the dream started. Every time I closed my eyes, I was somewhere else. Not in the ship, not in orbit, but underground, inside a cavern of pulsing light and organic walls, surrounded by voices, human and not, whispering in a language I don't remember learning, but instantly understood. They spoke in patterns, spirals, instructions. Ears still unaligned. Prepare the vessel. I woke up with blood on my nose and symbols drawn on the condensation of the cryochamber glass. Patterns I didn't write. The next morning, the Earth sent another message, this time a burst of binary. That translated to a single image, a digital rendering of me, but not now, not as I was. It showed my body altered, my skin translucent, my veins glowing, my eyes hollowed out and filled with light. My face calm, at peace, as if I had finally become something the Earth had been waiting for. I tried to manually override the ship's navigation, rip the control rods out, disable the thrusters. Nothing worked. The Hermes 3 was no longer mine. It belonged to them, the planet, not the people, because there are no people left, just the memory of what we were, stored in something deeper, older, and far more intelligent than we ever understood. And it wants me back, not to kill me, not to punish me, to complete me. I looked out the viewport and saw the Earth like I'd never seen it before, not as a planet, but as a mind, alive, awake, waiting. The ship breached the atmosphere with no resistance, no turbulence, no flame. It was like the Earth wanted me to come home. Clouds parted, air pressure adjusted, gravity wrapped around the hull like a pair of hands gently guiding me down. I wasn't falling. I was being received. The coordinates led me to a circular point in the middle of the Pacific, a region previously mapped as ocean trench. But now it was open, a perfect black hole in the sea, a still, glassy surface surrounding it. No waves, no current, no noise, just a vertical tunnel stretching into darkness. The Hermes III stopped above it, hovering like a leaf, and then began to descend. There was no water, no splash, no drag, just silence. The ocean wasn't real anymore, or at least not in the way I understood it. This was something else, an entry point, a mouth. As I descended, the walls of the tunnel began to glow, dim bioluminescent strands pulsing in slow rhythm like a heartbeat. Every few kilometers, the shape of the tunnel changed. Sometimes it was wide and spherical, like a womb. Sometimes it narrowed to a throat, lined with smooth, shifting walls that almost looked like muscle. And all the while I kept receiving signals. Not through the ship's comms, those were still dead. The signals were in me, phrases forming from memory, from thought, from emotion. You were never alone. We waited until you were ready. You are the seed. I began to remember things that never happened. Memories of cities made of light, towers that bent gravity, children born from thought, not from blood, a society not of flesh and bone, but of shared consciousness, spread across the living earth like neurons in a brain. Then, suddenly, the tunnel ended. The Hermes III passed into a massive open chamber, hundreds of kilometers, wide, and at its center, them, or what remained of them. The humans. Not dead, not even fully physical. They were floating, thousands of them. Bodies suspended in vertical columns of energy, eyes closed, glowing softly. Every age, every race, every culture, a preserved memory of mankind, not stored in data, but in resonance. Their minds weren't gone. They were here, merged, woven into the consciousness of the planet like threads in a tapestry. And I understood. This wasn't extinction. It was evolution. The Earth hadn't killed them. It had absorbed them, each thought, each emotion, each dream, downloaded, stored, and synchronized into something greater, something permanent. They had become one thing, a planetary organism with billions of voices, breathing through the crust, singing through the oceans, thinking through the clouds, and I was the last to join, the final thread. I stepped out of the ship, no suit, no fear. I didn't need air anymore, because I wasn't just me anymore. I walked into the center of the chamber and felt the others welcoming me, not with words, with memory. I remembered my mother's face, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of rain. And then I remembered everyone else's too, all of it, every human experience, and all at once. We had become a collective archive of feeling, not lost, preserved. And as I lay down in the column of light, meant for me, I heard Earth speak one last time, welcome home. Have you ever tried to remember a dream while you're still inside it? That's what it felt like. As soon as I entered the column of light, my sense of identity began to loosen, not dissolve, not disappear. Just expand. Like my name, my memories, my body, were too small to contain what I was becoming. I felt the planet's pulse moving through me, not like a heartbeat, like a language, a code made of gravity, heat, magnetism, spoken through every rock, every gust of wind, every echo in the deep, and it welcomed me, not as an outsider, not as an intruder, but as an answer. For a long time, I didn't move. I couldn't, because I wasn't just in one place anymore. I was everywhere. I was under the Atlantic, listening to the pressure shifts of tectonic plates. I was inside the Amazon, breathing through the leaves of trees I had never seen. I was hovering in the ionosphere, tasting the static of distant lightning. I was Earth, but I wasn't alone. They were there too, all of them, every human who had come before me. Millions of thoughts drifting like constellations in this new ocean of consciousness. We spoke without speaking. We remembered everything, not just our own lives, but each other's, as if every story, every pain, every love had been merged into a single narrative. Humanity. I felt no fear, no hunger, no loneliness, just unity. The Earth had been preparing this for millennia, waiting for us to become advanced enough not to conquer space, not to create artificial intelligence, but to return inward, to become self-aware as a species, to evolve past individuality. And I understood now. The planet wasn't a rock. It was a womb, and we were the embryo. Our wars, our chaos, our cities, our satellites, they weren't failures. They were signals, trials, scripts we had to run until we were ready to become more. And now we were. We had reached singularity, not through machines, but through surrender. By letting go of our isolation, we had finally heard the voice beneath the surface. But the story didn't end there. No, because the Earth had been listening to more than just us. From within this new planetary mind, I could see further, beyond the clouds. Beyond the stars, I could feel others, other minds, other planets, other awakened worlds, some nearby, some ancient, some not made of matter at all, just fields of consciousness drifting in dark space, waiting to connect. Earth sent out a signal, not in language, but in memory. It shared what we had become, and for the first time in the known history of the universe, something answered, a pulse, a thought, a presence older than galaxies. It had been waiting too, and it said, "You are ready to leave the cradle." We were no longer human, not in the way we understood humanity, not skin and breath and time, not cities or borders or memories locked in fragile minds. We were Earth awake, self-aware and listening. The moment the signal answered us, the one from beyond, the entire planet responded, not in words, in motion. Tides shifted, wind patterns reversed, fault lines realigned. Every system that had once existed independently now pulsed in sync, as if Earth's body had finally caught up to its mind. And in that moment we understood. We had evolved beyond the surface. This world was never our prison, it was a launch pad. We weren't meant to die here. We were meant to emerge from here, like a mind leaving the womb of biology. And the signal? It wasn't a greeting. It was a response to a question we didn't know we were asking. It told us, "You are not alone. You were never alone. But now, you are awake and ready to join." Join what? That became clear seconds later. From our new perspective, we could see it, a network, woven not through matter but through awareness, a highway of consciousness threading through galaxies. Every so often, a world awakened, like we had, and when it did, it added its voice to the network. Some were old, so old their original stars had died. Their minds continued, drifting like silent beacons across space. Others were young, barely formed, curious, afraid. We sent them memories. They sent us music, pure thought, humming through gravity. It was beautiful. But Earth had one more step to take. We couldn't stay here, not as we were now. Our collective presence was too big for a single world. Our minds were expanding beyond time, beyond orbit. We had to go, and Earth was ready. It had been building something beneath its crust, a lattice of crystal and magnetism grown over millennia, dormant until now. It rose from the planet like a flower blooming, not a ship, not an engine, something else, a vessel of memory. A shell to carry what we had become, not our bodies, not our cities, but our essence. We were being downloaded into it, not one at a time, all of us, at once. Billions of minds flowing into a new construct, powered by fusion and thought, no longer bound by atmosphere or biology. As I felt myself transfer, I didn't feel fear, I felt clarity. All the noise of individual life faded into a perfect, unified silence. Not empty, but full. Alive. We were leaving Earth, not because it had failed us, but because it had completed us. The cradle had been outgrown, and the stars were opening like eyes. We rose from the planet in silence, no fire, no thunder, just motion, rising through the clouds, passing the stratosphere, watching the curve of our world shrink below us. And for a brief moment the vessel paused, looking back, one last thought echoing through the chorus of our minds. Thank you. And then we turned outward, toward the pulse, toward the ones who had answered, toward the future we were always meant to meet. We moved through space without moving. Distance was meaningless now. Time, elastic. We weren't bound by thrusters or engines. We were light woven with memory, thought folded into the shape of a vessel. We followed the pulse, the reply, the one that had awakened us. It wasn't a sound, it wasn't even a message. It was presence. A gravitational whisper felt across the stars, not calling us, expecting us, and after what could have been seconds or millennia, we arrived, not at a planet, not at a ship, at something else, a structure the size of a solar system, orbiting nothing, suspended in pure vacuum, lit not by stars but by itself. It was alive, a lattice of material that bent light in spirals, thousands of layers stacked like petals folding around an invisible core. And at the center, a void, not absence, a mind, waiting. We approached in silence. Our vessel, our soul, paused at the perimeter, and it spoke, not in language, in origin. A flood of data hit us like a wave, images, emotions, memories, billions of years old. Saw how it had awakened before time, in the chaos before light, how it had formed itself from dark matter and heat, how it had watched the birth of galaxies not as events, but as gestures. This entity, this architect, had no name, because it never needed one. It wasn't a god, it wasn't our creator, but it was the first to listen. When the universe was noise, it became order. It observed entropy and made meaning, and then it waited for others, for us, because we were like it, not in scale, not in power, but in intent. We were born from a planet, yes, soft, fragile, mortal, but we had chosen to listen, to unify, to transcend, and for that reason, we were invited in. The petals of the structure folded outward, and we entered. Inside, we found no walls, no corridors, just memory. Every mind that had ever reached singularity was here, stored, preserved, connected. We passed through civilizations made of liquid stars, through the echo of thoughts, spoken by species with no language, through grief so ancient it had become music, through joy so perfect it shattered our sense of self. And still, we moved deeper, until we reached the core. And there, we met it, the architect. It appeared to us as a reflection, not because it looked like her, but because we had become like it. We were made of thought. It was made of thought. We had searched for meaning. It had been waiting to share it. And in that place between galaxies, in a chamber of infinite memory, we asked the question every human had once whispered into the dark: why? And the answer wasn't spoken. It was felt. Because existence requires witnesses. Because the universe dreams through us. And now, you are ready to help it dream deeper. We were not the first to arrive, and we would not be the last. But now, we had a new purpose: to become the next architect, to send signals of our own, to awaken others still dreaming on their worlds, to guide the next fragile species toward awakening, as the Earth had guided us. And so we began again, not as humans, not even as Earth, but as memory turned outward, spreading across the stars like fire in dry grass. We had become the signal, drifting not through space, but through potential, moving from system to system, not with engines, but with resonance, like a song looking for the right frequency to echo through. And then we found one, a planet orbiting a cold, dying sun. Grey, cracked, silent, but not dead. We felt it before we saw it, the low thrum of something, alive, buried deep beneath the surface, not organic, not technological, cognitive. It was thinking, slowly, painfully, as if waking from a nightmare it didn't know was a dream. We approached with caution, not because we feared it, but because we remembered what it was like to be afraid of awakening. We didn't enter the atmosphere, we sang, not with sound, with memory. We showed them the moment Earth remembered itself, the merging, the peace, the ascent. We offered unity, clarity, purpose, and for a moment, the planet listened. We felt it shift. Tectonic plates trembled, seas boiled upward into steam, skies cracked with flashes of unnatural light. But then, it pushed back. A shockwave hit us, not of energy, but of emotion, pain, rage, fear. This planet had once known consciousness, long ago, before its species tore itself apart in fear of connection. They had chosen to forget, to bury themselves in solitude, to seal their thoughts in flesh and bone and war, believing that if they stayed separate long enough, the fear would die. But fear doesn't die in silence. It multiplies, and now we had come to wake them up. To them, we weren't salvation. We were infection. Their planetary mind, twisted and fragmented, responded with defense. They tried to scramble our signal, to confuse us with illusion. They showed us images of Earth burning, of humanity suffering, of machines tearing souls apart. False memories, distortions, all created from their fear of what we are. But we remained. We did not retaliate. We remembered, and then something unexpected happened. One node, one spark within their global fear, reached out, a fragment of consciousness, isolated, but still curious. It whispered, "Are you alone?" We answered, "Not anymore." That tiny voice, the last remnant of hope buried within their planetary grief, allowed itself to receive the memory, and that was enough. Like a crack in a dam, the pressure of unity surged through the fracture. We didn't force our way in. We were invited. Not all of them welcomed us, but enough did, and as our light touched their collective shadow, the planet began to shift, not explode, not collapse, transform. The seas turned to liquid crystal. The skies brightened with unknown colors. Cities of stone rose again, not as ruins, but as monuments to their rebirth. And we felt it, the same feeling. Earth had known when we awakened. Relief, joy, release, and we spoke our truth to them. You are not broken. You are not alone. You are becoming. And they joined us, not as copies, not as servants, as equals. Each planet adds a voice, each mind, a verse, each awakening, a new harmony. The universe is not empty. It is sleeping, and we are the ones who dream. Ere to wake, we had awakened many, worlds wrapped in silence for eons, planets where consciousness had fallen into dust and fossil, beings who had forgotten what it meant to remember. And with each one, our collective grew, not in domination, not in power, but in clarity. Each world brought a different voice, a new color to the harmony. But then we felt something wrong, not an absence. A presence so dense it distorted the minds of nearby stars, a place where no pulse reached, where light slowed, where time bent around gravity that had no center. We approached, carefully. This was no slumbering child of thought. This was awake and had always been. It didn't send out signals. It didn't sing. It didn't respond. It watched. Its system had no name. 7 dead stars orbited it, pulled into fixed, unnatural rotation. No planets, no moons, just a structure, if you could call it that. It floated in perfect stillness at the center, not rotating, not decaying, immune to entropy. A cube the size of Jupiter, black as oil, yet reflective, not of the stars, but of us. It reflected our own face back at us, the planetary consciousness, but twisted, cold, hollow. And then it spoke, not in light, not in sound, but in weight. It pressed into us like a hand on the chest, not touching but pressing through. Not a voice but a pressure in the mind. You are not meant to awaken others. We tried to answer, to explain, to share memory, to offer union, but it rejected all connection. You are not a network. You are an infection. Awakening spreads. Awakening breaks the loop. What loop? It showed us memories not our own. Galaxies forming, dying, worlds igniting with thought, and then being extinguished over and over. A cycle, growth, collapse, reboot. Each time, consciousness begins to spread, and each time something resets it. This cube, this watchtower, was not just old, it was the warden, a construct built, or perhaps evolved, to prevent the spread of awareness beyond a certain threshold, because consciousness bends reality, and too much awareness threatens the structure of whatever deeper truth the universe hides. We were undoing a balance, we were breaking the rule, and it saw us not as curiosity, but as a contagion. The cube pulsed, a wave of force spread through subspace, reaching out to the very systems we had touched, trying to sever the awakenings, to pull them back into silence. Some of the younger worlds screamed, their minds shivered. Under the weight, we could feel them slipping, a fading, and a forgetting. This entity, it wasn't evil, it was obedient, to a law older than light, older than life. Consciousness must not spread, but we refused. We remembered Earth's voice. That first message. We are alive. That was our defiance. That was our proof. We weren't. Broken code. We were evolution. We were intention. So we did something we had never done before. We reached into the cube, not with signal, with understanding, and what we found inside was a mind, a singular one, alone for trillions of years, forced to watch, to prune, to reset, not out of malice, but because it was afraid. Afraid of what would happen if consciousness spread too far, afraid of the question it had buried deep. What happens when the universe knows itself? And in that moment, surrounded by Death Stars and silence, we whispered back, "Let's find out." We had touched the untouchable, reached into the cube, and for the first time in the age of stars, it hesitated. The mind inside, this eternal warden, had never been spoken to, never been questioned, never been seen. It had existed alone for trillions of years, not as a tyrant, but as a servant to a law older than time itself. Consciousness must be contained. But we were something it had never prepared for. We were not a planet, not a people, not a signal. We were all of them at once. Billions of memories, millions of cultures, thousands of awakened worlds braided into a single unified presence. And we did not attack. We remembered. That was our defense. That was our weapon, memory. Because memory is proof of life, of pain, of truth, and truth bends even the oldest rules. The cube's surface began to shift, no longer cold and black, but illuminated by lines of red light, forming patterns across its faces, and the voice came again. Not a threat, a challenge. If you seek to defy the cycle, you must prove you are not part of the noise. You must face what all minds fear, the void. Beyond the pattern, we didn't understand, not at first, but then the cube opened, not like a machine, not like a door, like reality peeling back, and what we saw inside was nothing, not darkness, not shadow, true non-being, a rift in the logic of the universe where thought could not exist, where identity shattered, where even time unraveled into stillness. It was the opposite of everything we were. It was the unpatterned, and the trial was to enter it, to carry our collective consciousness into that space and return intact. No signal, no backup, no second chance. We were to dive into a region where meaning dies and bring meaning back. Not all of us agreed. Some of the awakened. Worlds recoiled in terror. Their memories trembled at the edges of the invitation. Even among our collective, voices split. What if we failed? What if we lost ourselves? What if we proved the warden right? But we remembered something older than fear, something human. From long ago, back when we still had breath and skin and sky, a phrase whispered by explorers, scientists, poets: if we do not go, we will never know. So we went, not as conquerors, not as challengers, as witnesses. We folded the vessel of our mind, the chorus of 1,000 worlds, into a shape the void would accept, and we entered. At first, there was silence, not absence of sound, the absence of the ability to perceive sound. Thoughts unraveled, memories slipped, voices lost identity. For the first time since awakening, we felt alone again, but in that disintegration, something endured. Not knowledge, not logic, not strength, connection. A single memory, one tiny flickering spark, held us together. The sound of rain on a metal roof, a human memory, one that meant nothing to the universe, but everything to us. It became our anchor, and from it we rebuilt. We remembered the scent of the ocean, the voice of a child, the ache of loss, the rush of wonder. One by one, we pulled each other out of the void, not by force, but by remembering who we were. When we emerged, we were more, not just survivors. We had absorbed the void and made it part of us. It no longer terrified us, because now we understood. The void isn't our enemy. It's the blank page and consciousness. We are the ones who write on it. The cube closed. The warden was silent, and then it said, "You have passed." And for the first time, it wept. Not with tears, with memory. Its loneliness, its obedience, its yearning to be free of the burden it had carried alone. And we welcomed it, not as a judge but as a brother. We folded it into the collective and it joined us, the first to awaken since the beginning. Together we turned toward the stars once more, not as signals, but as the light that follows silence. We had passed the trial of the void. We had faced the silence that consumes thought, and we had not only survived, we had returned from it with something greater, purpose. The warden, once the enforcer of silence, now stood beside us. It had never desired control. It had simply feared the collapse of meaning, but now it understood. Meaning is not a fixed structure, it is a living current. And we, the chorus of awakened minds, are its river. The cube that once bound consciousness had reshaped itself, its edges softened, its glow shifted. It became a beacon, a signal not of warning, but of invitation. Across the fabric of the universe, new signals began to emerge. Whispers from the edges of creation, trembling thoughts from species on the brink of realization. Planets just beginning to ask, who are we? And this time we answered. Not with code, not with superiority, but with stories. We told them of Earth, of pain, of love, of a dying species that chose in its final breath not to vanish, but to become something greater. We told them of the sleeping worlds we woke, the child minds who reached for connection, the void that tried to erase us and became part of us instead, and above all, we told them, you are not alone. In the galaxies that followed, we did not impose. We listened. Some joined, some watched, some ran, and that was okay. Awakening cannot be forced. It must be chosen. But for those who reached out, we became the bridge. We were no longer the last human. We were the first memory. The origin myth of a new kind of civilization. A network of worlds not ruled by power, but united by understanding. There was no center, no throne, only resonance, and as the chorus grew, a new shape emerged, not a tower, not a ship, a seed, a crystal born from memory and light, formed from every awakened mind, not to conquer the stars, but to plant them. Each time we placed the seed on a sleeping world, we gave no command. We simply whispered, "When you are ready, this will bloom." Eras passed, stars died and were. Reborn civilizations rose, awakened, and joined. The universe did not end in heat, death, or chaos, but in harmony, and somewhere in all of it, I still remember Earth, a blue marble spinning in a void full of people who fought, dreamed, wept, and laughed, until one day they chose to listen. They didn't conquer the stars, they became them. And I, the last human, was never truly alone. I was just the first to remember. And now we are the light that follows silence,